The Youthscape Podcast.
Hi and welcome to the Youthscape Podcast with me, Rachel Gardner, and him.
And Martin Saunders.
It is so good to welcome you. And as you know, if you were tuning in regularly, we bring to you some fabulous guests who bring some just awesome top drawer stuff.
They do.
But before that, you get us.
I'm sorry.
You get us unhinged, unleashed. Are you ready with some good stories today,
Often
Martin?
unplanned.
And unfocused.
Yeah.
So it's going to be good. So stick with it. Now, I'm looking at a camera because actually at the moment we have the fabulous producer James and we have the podcast producer Amy and we have gaffer, right-hand man, assistant producer Matt filming this. How can people watch this?
This is the last one for a while that we're doing.
Is that because of what went so terribly wrong in the last one?
Yeah, that's right. But we are going to be on YouTube, which is a website.
Sounds new.
You can go on there and if you search for Youthscape, there's a bunch of podcasts available in video form like this one.
Also Facebook.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, all sorts of routes.
Thank you, producer Amy.
She's brilliant. She's so good.
Yeah, so you'll be able to pick it up on our social media as well. But we wanted to give you a sort of insight into what it looks like. And I'll be honest with you, I'm going to level with you, this isn't actually normally what it looks like. We normally record this thing in a cupboard.
Literally in a cupboard.
Yeah, but this time
and you're normally
branched
sat
out.
like on my lap almost, aren't you? It's like, we're like right here.
Yeah, and not on your lap.
No, you're not on my
Just
lap.
to be clear, not on her
this
lap.
is good.
But we are, because we're hoping to sell this to TBN, we've decided to put like a giant, some stuff in the background.
It's all fake walls, isn't it?
This is all, there's actually nothing here, this is all cardboard.
It's all blue
but no, you're in the drop-in centre at Youthscape here, where we have young people every night.
Actually, that's a really nice thing. I hadn't even thought to say that. Well, yeah, we are sat in the drop-in where every day young people come, and this is the corner actually where often big conversations take place.
Yeah. But today we've locked all the teenagers out.
Yeah, that's right. No,
I can't get in.
No, you can't have this space. This is just for us. So, Martin, have you had a good week?
I have had a good week.
The sun is shining.
It's glorious, isn't it?
It's fantastic.
It's what's the date today, Amy?
It's the 8th of March.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. It's a very significant date.
So as we're recording this on the 9th of March, may I self-indulgently say that it's my birthday tomorrow.
Wonderful. We had a few years ago where we had to be very sensitive around the special date, didn't we?
Really
We're beyond
struggled.
that now.
I struggled with that one.
We're free from that.
Yeah. And if anyone's ever found it, there's a really self-indulgent... they did like a 40th birthday special for me.
It was very long.
Which was a bit...
It was a bit indulgent.
It was uncomfortable.
It was good. It was really good.
It was uncomfortable. Anyway, that was 2 years ago. Amazing. So now there's only a 1 year age gap between us.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's amazing. But I will always be older and wiser. Can I share with you a story that has really brought hope to my heart?
Yes, please.
Because you often have brought recently some amazing stories about God doing incredible things in young people's lives, like outside of... Dare I say it, outside of youth ministry.
Yeah.
And you told a story recently, and I have to say, I did have that pang of, I wish that sort of thing happened to me. And it's happened in the past, but not recently. And you told a story of a young person that just walked into church out of the blue.
Oh, yeah.
And just wanted to find out. Well, on Sunday... we had exactly the same thing. So we're a high street church. Yeah. So we often have people wandering in from nowhere because we're quite visible and we have like a free donut wall outside and the rest of it. But this
hang on. What? You have a free donut wall? How does that work?
You just hang free donuts on a wall that has lots of nails in it and you have the word free donuts above it. And the most hilarious thing happens. People in Preston who supposedly just put their heads down and just don't stop anywhere, they find sneaky ways to creep up and nick the donuts. It's so good. Yeah, I love it.
Do they take more than one?
Yeah, I love it.
I
love a bit of audacity for the gospel. It's good. But anyway, a teenage lad walked in, I think he was about 17 years old, and a year before, he had been in his bedroom and he said this to us. I was in my bedroom and I just was so desperate. Didn't tell us anything about his story. That's private. He can, as he trusts us, he might tell us stuff. He was like, I was just so desperate. I was just crying out to whatever is out there. I was just so desperate. And then he said this, and I met Jesus. And it was one of those powerful things where you just think, yeah, I don't know what that was, what that felt, but he met Jesus. And about a year later, he was like, I woke up this morning, I thought, I better go and find some other people that have met Jesus too.
Oh, wow.
And it was that moment of, oh, so what are we supposed to do? Like, what do we do? Because
Panic.
Yeah, and it's just so
Did they find
amazing.
you immediately, or did they panic and send for you?
Well, the beautiful thing is we have a youth pastor called Beth Bright who's amazing, and our operations team guy is called Nev, and he's probably the best youth worker I've ever met. He's never done youth work in his life. He's in his late 50s, but he's all in for young people.
But he's at Tate.
So I think it was him. This guy went and spoke to Nev.
He's the best youth worker you've ever met.
I think in that he's just so available for young people. Oh, sorry. Martin is the best youth worker I've ever met.
I don't have to be.
Second.
But, you know, some of us have been through, like, training college. Yeah, we've been in it for the long haul.
I don't think...
Some guy who's never even done youth ministry is the best youth worker you've ever met.
I don't think he's worked in a single tuck shop, Martin.
What?
I think it's shocking.
Pay your dues, Nev.
But isn't that amazing? Like,
that's the
great thing about church plans, that everyone's really focused on young people. But anyway,
great.
So it was him, and he came to find me in a kind of like, Rach, you need to hear this. You need to hear this.
Wow.
It'd be just beautiful and a beautiful reminder that God passionately cares about young people and doesn't always need us to do it.
I know, it's worrying.
Terrifying. So I was so encouraged.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so what now? What now for this lad?
Well, I said to him, oh, we've got Alpha starting next week. And he's like, brilliant, because I want to tell more people about Jesus. And I'm like, yeah, of course you want to be of course, yeah.
Brilliant.
Here's me wanting to like sneak you into a course to make sure it's proper.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I just want to tell people about Jesus.
Got to line up your doctrines before we can go any further.
Love it. So good on him.
I love that.
We love this young man. Awesome. And also, not to stereotype, but he walked into the church, and I think people's reactions to him wasn't, you're about to tell us you're a Christian. It's amazing, isn't it? The assumptions that we make when somebody walks into the room. So exciting.
I've done that where we've had a young person turn up at youth group, and you kind of make all these preconceptions about you. Well, that one clearly fits the mold not to be a Christian. Yeah. You know, I'm sure he looks a bit edgy. Yeah. At some point I shall start to say, well, we're Christians actually. And then you do say that, and he's like, oh yeah, my dad's a pastor.
Yeah.
So it's good to learn.
I am the pastor.
Yes.
Because we're so old now, they're so young looking. Brilliant. Now we have, for those that are watching this, we have a rogue notebook with very nice writing on it.
Oh yeah, someone's made notes for this.
Someone's made notes for this podcast. It's our next
Can
guest.
we read them? Can we
read the notes?
Can we read the notes first?
There's no privacy, no consent. But we have two amazing guests, and I think for me the energy levels, have you felt it? I've gone up a little bit.
You've been very excitable.
I'm very excited about it, mainly because they're women. I get very excited about women in ministry, but also because they work for an organisation that is so dear to my heart. Now, I didn't grow up through this organisation, but pretty much everyone else that's involved, it's in their blood and DNA. I am talking about one of the greatest gifts to Christian youth ministry in the UK, which is the Girls Brigade. Should we bring on our guests? I feel like a game show. They're Dr. Clara and Florence, come join us. It's wonderful to have you. Oh,
wow, that was a little game show.
Oh, I just love them.
A little bit cabaret.
Love these women. I said to Martin when he sat down, you're playing with the big guns now. You come to the big adult table now. Like, this is the adult table.
Shall I just...
No. Lean in and join in. So Florence, you are a development worker in Bristol.
Yes.
And Claire, you are the mission and advocacy enabler for Girls Brigade, among many other titles. Mm-hmm. So to get here today, where have you come from to be with us today?
I come from Belfast, the greatest city in the world.
Oh my goodness. And are you regularly like doing the little jump across?
Yeah, I travel quite a lot. Yeah, in the next 8 weeks I'm going to do 16 flights. So I'm eco warrior's nightmare.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh dear. I see you brought your own bottle of water though.
I did.
Reusable bottle, so that goes towards it.
And I don't own a car, I just want to say that. So that's what I do for the environment. I fly a lot, but I don't own a car.
You don't need one because you fly everywhere.
Uber and flying. Oh, Claire, so I'm so excited that we've got you both from Girls Brigade. And I do talk every now and then about Girls Brigade on the podcast, but it's the first time that we've had a dedicated episode. We did record with one of the volunteers who's been a volunteer for 46 years up north. We've not had anybody from the core team, so it's great to have you. Claire, can we start by asking you, what is Girls Brigade and what is it that it can offer the local church? For anyone that doesn't know, what is Girls Brigade?
Yeah, oh my goodness, Girls Brigade changed my life when I went when I was 3 years old. And to put it in a nutshell, what is Girls Brigade? It's an international mission movement for girls. We're in over 50 countries. So that means there's over about 200,000 girls every week coming through church doors in all different cultures to hear the gospel and discover who they are in Jesus. And right here in England and Wales, Girls Brigade meets in local churches every week. They partner with local churches to provide like missional outreach. But we also have other projects like Coco, which is our online vlog, and our Esther Collective for their 18 to 30. So we're obviously a traditional uniform youth organisation in many ways, been around for 127 years. But we have innovated and we have diversified to meet the needs of girls today.
And we recently celebrated a big anniversary in England and Wales, didn't we? 125 years. You've got a story about the birth of GB England and Wales, is that right?
Yeah, I've got a story about the birth of GB internationally.
Oh, tell us.
Yeah,
tell us.
So 127 years ago in Dublin, a woman went up and sat on a park bench overlooking Dublin. If you think about that, it was 1893. The situation for girls was really difficult. They couldn't get an education. They couldn't vote. There were lots of girls that were very poor and had nowhere to go. And she just prayed to God for God to give her a vision for these girls. And she felt like, it sounds so simple, but we need to open the church doors for these girls. And that's what she did in a little church called Sandymount in Dublin. And the lady was Margaret Byers, and I'm so inspired by her vision and hope, because this is a time where women would not have taken any kind of public role. You know, they were told to be quiet, they weren't worth being educated. But she must have went through all the church committees to create this group. And did this woman know 127 years later that we would be sitting talking about GB in over 50 countries? Like, her faithfulness and her obedience, look what it's, you know, over the centuries, over the many different cultures. And I just think she's an incredible woman of faith. Like many of the women in the late 1800s, they were motivated by their faith to make a difference. And actually, I loved how at the National Youth Ministry Weekend, you amplified one of those stories. And actually, I think we need to do more of that, to be inspired by the women of faith in the past.
How did it, so, I mean, I'm not asking for a massive history lesson, I don't expect you to know the ins and outs, but how did it go from there to 50 countries?
That's a really good question. Do you know what? I am like a history buff. That's what my PhD was in, but I've never looked into it, Martin. But I reckon it was the missionaries, because when I go to these countries, when I go to the Caribbean, when I go to Singapore, they're celebrating women from England and Scotland who came 60, 70 years ago. So these were actually women, not necessarily with their husbands either, but they felt God's calling to go to a different country. And they had seen the benefit of Girls Brigade, so they brought what they know. But what I love when I go to Singapore and Asia, they are so innovative. They've taken GB and they are outreaching to all the different countries. They're doing anti-trafficking projects. They're doing English language schools. So they've taken the core of GB, which is to help girls discover life to the full, and they've adapted it to the environment they're in and for the 21st century.
And that's what I love about GB. It's profoundly practical. It is faith in action, isn't it? And it's asking the question continually, for this generation of young women, what are the challenges they face, and how can the church be good news for girls, not 50 years ago, but now, which is, as you said, but building on all the wonderful stuff that's gone before. Florence, so you're fairly new to the GB family, and you are the development worker in Bristol, amazing city. So what does that look like for you? What are you doing in developing GB across that city?
Yeah, so like you were saying about yourself as well, I didn't grow up in GB at all, so have no background with it, and I've been working with GB now for coming up to 5 months, so I'm still very new. So my role in Bristol up until, well, now it's sort of kind of all coming together, I've just really been like finding out about the amazing work that GB is doing and how it's like impacting girls' lives, and going around to all the groups and meeting girls, which has been amazing. And it's just incredible to see how much this organisation means to the girls and the volunteers that work for them. And yeah, I guess I've just been sort of also trying to make those connections between maybe churches or organisations that wouldn't have traditionally been involved with GB. I think because it's such a like historic organisation, people obviously have heard of it, but they might not know that we're sort of like doing all of this really like crucial contemporary work that is like going right into the centre of girls' lives today. So with my connection to like a different kind of church, I've been able to sort of do a bit of networking and like come in there.
What's the response been? Because I think you're absolutely right. I often hear people say, "Well, is it girl guides?
Yeah.
Do you just do ropes? Like, do you teach the kids how to do knots, or are you sewing? Like, what are some of the myths that you come up against, and how do they respond when they actually hear about the work that's done?"
Yeah. Well, we always get the question like, oh, do they still wear the uniforms, and do you still do the drills? Like, because it had obviously quite like military connotations, but that's like moved on now from that, and do still have uniforms, but they're polo shirts, like beautifully brightly coloured polo shirts. So that just provides like a nice sort of sense of community when the girls all come together. But yeah, it's just, I think I've been really heartened to see that there are so many churches who maybe had these like misconceptions of what GB was, who are sort of now coming to realise that we have this amazing like 127 years of experience of working with girls and young women and empowering these people, and they're just catching the vision for it and looking to draw on what we can offer them and how we can work with them and sort of collaborate on things, because I think there's a real realisation now of the necessity of championing girls within the church and raising them up within the church and within a Christian context.
One of the things we struggle with often in churches is the drop off that happens between children's and youth ministries. Wherever you draw the line, there's a point often where kids get too old for children's ministry, and then they are given the option maybe of youth ministry, or there isn't even any youth ministry for them to go into, and that's when they start to disconnect with the church. One of the great things about GB obviously is that it takes you all the way through. Do you tend to see like girls going the distance and kind of starting in GB age kind of 4 or 5 and coming out the other end at 18?
Well, I started when I was 3.
Oh.
I'm still in it. I'm not going to get you to guess. So I have my own little
23
local group.
now.
Yeah, that's your right answer. So yeah, my local group was last night in Northern Ireland, and you're completely right. We have girls, so there were girls last night that were 16 and they've been in that local GB group since they were 3. They don't have any other wider connection with the church. But if you ask them why they come, they feel it's a place where they belong, where they're safe. And some of our leaders have been there the whole span of their life. And I think that when we talk about our culture today, and there's so much online connection, which can be powerful, but there can be because of online connection, a disconnection in real life.
Yeah.
You've got these group of women that have been every week asking them, you told me to pray for that last week, how did it go? There's a powerful sense of belonging, that they feel loved outside of their family. And for my own story, I was a rebel when I reached 15, 16, Rachel, you can't imagine it, can you?
God, no.
I refused to play netball and nearly got turfed out of my local GB group. But what kept me there? It was actually the leaders turned around and said, Claire, we'd like you to do some leadership training. Never thought of myself as a leader. They trained me in leadership skills, and then they gave me a role. So I helped with the little ones. Then I did the scripture, the Bible stories. And that's what kept me in GB. In a time where I have to say my faith, when I was late teenager, early 20s, I was probably more of an atheist.
Wow.
But because of those women invested in me, giving me a role in leadership, encouraging me, creating that space for me to ask questions, then God used GB to bring me back to Him.
Wow.
That's amazing. And I think let's stick with your story, Claire, because you have a kind of a global role. You're Vice President of GB International, and the insights that you have, I love hearing your stories. You're often in Australia or Singapore or somewhere, sending back amazing stories. And actually, as this podcast goes to air, you are going to be part of a GB Delegation of Hope at the United Nations. So that blows my mind. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Like what is that? What first of all, what is that Delegation of Hope seeking to do?
Yeah.
And how does that feel for you to be someone that can speak and to raise other women? Because you're so much about raising up the girls behind you, aren't you? What is that like for you to be in that space of power?
I'm literally so excited. A bit stressed out, but very excited. So why are we going to this Delegation of Hope? Basically, every year at the United Nations, there's a commission on the status of women. This is the largest forum when they talk about gender justice and gender equality issues. And we heard about this a couple of years ago. And in order to be able to go, you had to apply to be recognised. And that was a 2-year process.
Wow.
And they did, because of political reasons, they did actually say no to some organisations. So when we got the okay, we were like, the whole reason that we wanted to go was to bring a team of younger women. So last year, the kind of international team, 4 of us went, because we had no idea really what it was like. And we just saw it. It was incredible space to talk about gender justice, but there was 2 gaps. There actually wasn't a lot of young women, and there definitely wasn't a lot of Christian voice at this event. And we were like, this is the gap that Girls Brigade can fill.
Yeah, brilliant.
And we've got amazing youth activists around the world. So we did a whole selection procedure. We've got 7 incredible young women. 2 are from the UK. The others are from Nigeria, Malaysia, Australia, Trinidad and Tobago, Zambia. And they are like incredible women that I am so inspired by in their 20s, and even one that's 18. And we're going to this forum to give them a voice, to amplify their voice. We're actually hosting a session, which is a bit scary.
So who could come to that session?
Yeah,
who would
anyone
be there?
that's attending the commission is
Any
past
world
women.
leader?
So it could be government, it could be government delegations, it could be other faith-based actors. And the session is called She Speaks, Young Women on Faith, Life and Transformation. And they're speaking about issues like girls' access to education, mental health, period stigma, and actually gender-specific persecution. And we're hosting it with open doors.
Brilliant.
And we've also got input from people like Christian Aid. So for these young women, I was thinking, like, I'm not speaking at this event, I'm just helping them organise. I'm thinking, these young women, what an incredible opportunity for them to use their voices and their experiences to advocate for Christian faith at the end. Because we're going to meet women and men that will tell us, as Christians, faith denigrates women. You know, it's a barrier. But these young women, their story is different, and it's all about amplifying their voice and their experience. And what's really exciting is we created like a whole bio list, and I circulated it to non-faith actors and secular organisations, and they're approaching us and they're saying, we see that one of the young women has creative arts and mental health experience, so she's inputting into a secular session about how to use creativity and mental art. Like, it's just like, it's mind-blowing.
Showing up and being seen and being in the conversation, isn't it? That's incredible. Florence, so Claire mentioned things like work around period stigma, girls' mental health, girls' well-being. Are these some of the topics that a local group, a GB group, is resourced to do something about? Are there things that in the UK that GB is doing?
Yeah, definitely. So at the moment, the GB Europe is currently putting together a resource pack on period stigma. So as far as we know, we're the first faith-based organisation to be sort of speaking out on this topic, which is really exciting to be like part of that. So that's hopefully going to be like busting the stigma surrounding menstruation so that girls and women can talk about it, but also men as well. And hopefully in doing so, we break down this kind of idea that this is a hidden health issue and it's actually just something that we can talk about, and we can also then tackle all the like poverty surrounding menstruation as well. So that's really great that we're like coming at that from a Christian perspective as well. Like, really excited to bring that out. And also just a lot about like well-being and girls' well-being, mental health is something that's really important to us. There was a report released recently by Plan UK, and in it they just sort of spoken to, it's very anecdotal, speaking to sorts of girls about their experiences. And they've just found really that in light of all of these cuts to like public funding and things, that there is no or little help out there for young people. Only 1 in 3 of children and teenagers with diagnosable mental health issues actually receiving NHS treatment, and girls in particular are feeling the brunt of this. They feel like they're picking up the emotional labour that these services would be providing. So in a way, well, in many ways, it's just completely unacceptable, because it sort of relegates girls back to that traditional, like, socially constructed idea of the girl as the carer. And there just isn't enough space there for girls to actually explore their own mental well-being and look out for themselves. They feel the burden of looking out for others who are struggling in light of this current situation that we find ourselves in. GB is massively there as like a space for girls to support them and to work through these issues with them. And we explore all sorts of things.
And what I love about GB is that those conversations are happening. Girls are safely having those conversations with their peers, but also with women of 2 or 3 generations, all in the same youth program, which I find just so powerful. You have a woman maybe in her 80s who doesn't feel able to maybe run the session, but she's doing this tuck shop or she's signing the children in. And I think the wisdom that she brings is still being shared. And I think that's such a gift to the church that GB offers that space for girls of all generations to kind of talk about these topics. I guess conversations like around period stigma and mental health, for many churches, they feel like, I don't know how I'd have, even traditional youth ministry, like we don't tend to talk about that very much.
I had a very interesting conversation with Claire on the phone a couple of weeks ago. Probably the first in-depth conversation I've ever had.
I don't think he even said the word period
in my life about.
Have you said it yet? Should we get him to say
Periods.
Yay!
Okay. I've ever had a long conversation with anyone about periods. But I think it's great. You've got to create those safe spaces for girls to talk with women and each other about their mental health, about periods and things like that. But also, we need to bring some of these conversations into the light, into the mainstream.
Absolutely.
And reflecting on how sort of my engagement with periods over, the last 30 years or whatever has been sex education. When I was 10 or 11, we were taken into separate rooms at that point. And so boys weren't allowed to hear the bit about periods. I mean, that may have changed now, but certainly when I was growing up, and so a lot of youth workers today, were growing up, we were not allowed to even hear that stuff. And then there's the sort of media glamorization of periods in a weird sort of way. Do you know what I mean by that? So the body form commercial, or the fact that in like those commercials, they always have those things where they have a blue liquid that they pour on and things.
Moreover, anyone thinks we're talking about blood. So yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So for us as guys growing up in that world, like, it's no surprise really that we don't understand. And then when we are, I don't mean confronted by it, but like we are brought, suddenly this is the reality of it, this is what it is. Like we don't know how to deal with that, and we find it, weird because we've actually been like, culture's kind of kept us away from that all the time. So actually for boys and girls, it's really important that we do talk about periods as a normal part of growing up, and not as the butt of a joke, which is always the way, even I would have probably, even I would have engaged with this question, is making a joke about, the time of the month. And actually, guys need to understand what it involves, and then maybe we can just move on.
And it is a serious issue because the Plan UK report said that 1 in 7 girls don't know what's happening when they get their period, and like they don't come to school. It's not even that they can't afford it; they're too worried about leakage. And like, I wonder, Rachel, would you agree with this as more mature, like not mature women?
I'm owning it.
But like, it's like even embarrassing for us to say. So for example, like I remember my sister, I took out a pad in a restaurant, and it was a pad, and she's like, "Put that in your bag," and it's like half the world. Like I have my period at the minute. I've got no shame saying that.
Absolutely.
It's half the world gets it, and we need to speak better, and we need to break the taboos. Because if we as adult women can't speak about it, how do we expect the younger girls?
And I think as well, one of the great things that GB can do is really help the church understand conversations around gender equality. So irrespective of a church's position on egalitarianism or complementarianism, is your church good news, a place where girls can thrive? And that has to involve them inhabiting their own bodies, like valuing their own bodies. And I think when I hear sermons preached where the male preacher will only use the male pronoun, I think you've dismissed women, but you also dismissed the fact that as a woman who might be currently menstruating, and that is constant in my head, am I leaking? Have I got where's the next toilet? That actually Jesus can still fully work in my life, and I can fully lead even in this moment. And when the male pronoun is the only one that's given, women are kind of thought, well, the times when I can act like a man, I can be used, but the times where maybe I'm pregnant, or I'm having my period, or I'm sweating, or whatever it is, those female moments, I can't really be used by God. So I think GB has, traditionally been a project that all churches can engage with, irrespective of the theology, because somehow it unites around, let's see this girl flourish, like this girl can. And I think that's really exciting. Jesus stands right behind her and says, this girl can, she can. And I just love that about GB. So what are the campaigns or things that we could get involved in here? here. Number one, I know everybody now wants to get a GB group in their church. I can hear it. So what would they do to find out about the resources and how they could connect with GB?
Yeah, well, we're going to have a brand new website, so I don't know its address just yet, but it should have launched by the time of this podcast, so I will double check. But if you Google it, you'll find us, and you'll see lots of information if you're a church leader, if you're a parent.
And is that Girls Brigade Ministries? Is that
Girls Brigade Ministries?
Right.
Yeah, so check that out, and we're always happy to hear from parents. We're delighted to hear from church leaders, and we're delighted to hear from women that want to volunteer their time. And this year, over the next couple of months, we're going to be holding Build, Hope, Equipping events. So that's an opportunity for you to come to your local area, meet with other church leaders, meet with someone from Girls Brigade, hear more about Girls Brigade, but also get some equipping on issues that are impacting young people. For example, gender stereotypes, self-worth, and it's completely free. And we just want to connect with the local churches, so that's a great way of getting involved.
People can either find out where their one is in their area, or they can approach you and say, actually, I'd like to host it. Our church would like to put that on.
Yeah.
And anything from you, Florence, anything you want to draw our attention to, like a one resource on Coco website or something you think, actually, there's something there just for people to get a little taste of what GB is about?
Yeah, I think, Coco itself is like an amazing resource if people want to find out sort of who we are and what we do and how we think about things. It's a really good resource. It's our online platform where we share video blogs and these amazing films that have just recently won awards on real issues affecting young people, not just girls. So our most recent film is about kindness, and it's just, they're really great resources to use in your youth group to spark conversation around these topics, or even if, as a young person, you might want to recommend it to a young person just to have a watch. They're just beautiful.
So how can someone find that? What would that be?
So that's the Coco story.
And just importantly, Coco stands for Keep On Keeping On, right?
Correct.
So it's K-O-K-O.
K-O-K-O.
Not like Coco Monkey.
No.
Yeah, it's very good.
No.
And our very own James.
James, behind the camera over there.
Meg Cannon.
Is the auteur behind many of those
appreciating them.
amazing films.
Bringing the stories to life. Thank you so much. I mean, I don't want this to end. I just want us to keep.
Neither do I.
chatting to
I'm
these.
totally comfortable.
Oh, this is just brilliant. This is so
Let's talk
good.
about periods some more.
Well, no, I just love these ladies in here. It's so
Sure.
amazing. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for being here. And we're going to watch this space and get excited about what happens after the Delegation of Hope in the UN, which you are currently at, even as we're listening to this. Bless you.
Yeah, sorry about the time travel thing. Doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Let's go with her. Let's go with her.
But yeah, no, thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
And I
it's
do, and
awesome.
I want to just say, so my daughter came up through Girls Brigade and has had such an amazing, it has been a privilege as a dad to watch female empowerment really happen in a really positive, tokenistic way. And she now, she's a sports person. She's doing lots of cool things in which she's actually leading at age 12. And I totally put that down to the fact that she grew up in that very empowering environment.
We just love seeing girls be all that God created them to be. And we've got, that's amazing with your daughter. Dawn Butler was a former GB girl. We've got bishops that are former GB girls. But whatever God wants them to be, we just want to help encourage that, and just see them flourish, as you said, and see them value their identity in Christ. So that's really encouraging to hear, Martin, about your daughter.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming and being with us today. So great to meet Claire and Florence. Got through the whole interview without doing any jokes around the name Florence, which
Were you having to fight that?
very difficult for me. Because Florence is a lovely name, but there's a lot of kind of cultural references and things you could pick up
from
around.
the magic roundabout.
A little unusual.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very old cultural reference. So I had Amy. I was texting with Amy prior to this recording, and she was saying, we've got Claire and Florence coming in, and I said, I hear Florence is great, but Claire, you need to watch out. She's a bit of a machine.
Oh!
Well, don't react like that, because because Amy had no idea what I meant by that. So not only did she have no idea, she was worried that Claire Rush was a formidable woman, and that we should be careful. And she was like, do you think we should just interview Florence then? So then I messaged her back. I was like, read it again. Read the message again, Amy. And so she did. She was like,
Still.
is there a problem with Claire? I don't understand. I said, read it to someone else, Amy. She did. She read it to someone else in the office. Turns out no one in Youthscape gets my jokes.
What? I got it straight away.
Well, you made that sort of... You made that...
was
You know,
a
the noise you
grandpa.
just made was a bit like when... Like an old man
Yes.
at a party. And he's a sort
And
of
I'm trying to-
patriarch.
Yeah,
and
he's a patriarch.
You know you have to laugh. Oh, yes, you
yes.
idiot.
But also, it's an indicator that I know what you're talking about. I know that cultural reference, Florence and the Machine. In fact, Florence and the Machine were playing the first year that National Youth Ministry Weekend
They
was
were.
at the Vox.
They were.
Which is why none of us could get any food.
There's always
Saturday night.
always concerts going
All
on
her fans.
in the arena opposite.
And we can always tell by looking at what the fans dress like.
There was a night when what I like to call Rick Astley night, where there was
Lots
a
of older men.
not older men, no, there were no older men at a Rick Astley gig.
It's all older women, isn't
There were
Lots of older women.
you know, a certain demographic.
Of women
that,
that just wanted to go. How
were there.
would they go and say, oh, you could just tell there was a Christian youth worker conference on because all those people that dress like ... Like, how would we like?
There's an interesting.
It used to be
subject.
bell-bottom jeans, wasn't it? Like 15 years ago, you was
Check shirts.
Youth worker.
There's a lot of check
possibly
shirts.
check shirt, yeah, possibly.
Beanie
But lots of
hats.
hoodies.
Yeah.
Lots of hoodies. Suitable footwear.
What, like suitable footwear or
I'm
comfortable footwear?
going to out it now. I'm slightly disappointed at the state of the footwear of the most youth workers. We're quite sensible, aren't we? And I want a bit more outrageous footwear, really.
There's a whole movement who wear
wears
socks and sliders, you know.
Is there?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's quite cool, isn't it? It's the
Is
hill.
it?
It's like the Hill song, like Dan Blythe made that cool.
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I've
me send
seen
you a mood board.
people from that church wearing clothes I don't even understand.
But it's amazing. They rock
They have.
it.
I tell you what they have. Do you know what I've seen that I genuinely don't understand is like a hooded t-shirt
Yeah.
with like sleeves, like short sleeves, but then a
Yeah.
massive gap
Yeah.
to the
let
side to let the air
yeah.
in. What is that, James? Have you got one of those?
No.
You're not one of
It's
those.
not- oh, it's just
You're a little bit Hillsong, aren't you?
That's just
Like you have been known to be a little bit Hillsong.
It's now a verb.
Have you
To
got?
Hillsong.
Have you got one of the special hats?
They're beautiful people, Hillsong.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Oh,
Not yet.
we love Dan Blythe and those guys.
Oh,
Dan
great.
Watson.
Great guys.
I don't think Dan Watson would wear that.
I've no idea who he is.
I think he would. He's a youth pastor at
Great.
Hillsong.
Fantastic.
Yes, he's amazing. We love you.
Do you
In
have
fact,
the-
I went and did some stuff with you lovely Hillsong people, and just in filming, they took one look at what I was wearing and went, we got some stuff in the cupboard. Do you want to borrow it? I was like, oh, okay. So maybe it's my love of the crazy footwear is not everyone's cup of tea.
If anyone knows what that's
Fine.
called, it'd be really
oh my
helpful.
goodness, you're on it with
The
that.
hooded t-shirt
The
with the
hood-
armpits.
the pit shirt,
I don't think it's called that.
the pit hood,
Pitudi.
patootie, the patootie.
If anyone knows what that's called,
patootie.
can you get in touch with us on social media or email us podcast@youthscape.co.uk.
So I'm really glad that at the end of a very profound interview with our dear guest, we end up yet again in some nether body region, don't we? Armpits this
Armpits are
time.
not nether.
They're not nether. They're fairly nether. Nether forever. So that was good. And I think that's all we need to say, apart from advertising
Yes.
some things. So
Advertising some things. That'll make
Sorry.
people keep listening. Advertising
it's
some
very
things.
language that we don't use at
Yes.
Youthscape. Sorry.
Yeah. No, we're not trying to sell you stuff.
No, we're not.
We're just wanting you to come and
Invest
be
in your
blessed.
own development.
Yeah, in exchange for money.
in our way.
So we have a programme of training events coming up here, mostly at the building in Luton. It's opposite. It's dead easy. It's opposite Luton Station. You can't miss it as long as you come out the right exit. So you turn right at the top of the stairs.
Most
And
of it.
then right in front of you, there's like a big mill with a giant pink neon sign on the roof. That's Youthscape. And there's a bunch of different training events. You can find them all at youthscape.co.uk/YW
YW training.
training.
All sorts of things on there.
Thank
Some
you, Amy.
great stuff. So therapeutic counselling, no.
Try again.
Therapeutic mentoring.
Therapeutic mentoring.
There's
Is there a girl one?
there's not a girl one, but there's one on sexting. The date and venue to be confirmed. You're doing something.
I'm doing a boy
around
one, which is
boy
why I asked if
identity.
you were doing a girl one.
Fantastic.
So there is a Man You Made to Be
Yeah.
one, which I'm doing with Matt, who is Assistant Director Matt.
Fantastic.
So if you've enjoyed those brief off comments,
If you
that you've
enjoy the way
heard,
he holds the camera,
yeah,
then
if
you
you've
might like
enjoyed
to come to that.
Then
that
you'll
one.
enjoy the way he holds a training day.
Oh, that's that noise again, isn't it?
So that's you idiot. So we're doing that in June. So find out about that and a bunch of other training events that are running at youthscape.co.uk/YW training. That's it for today.
That is it for today. We've really enjoyed being with you guys, and we hope that you have enjoyed the kind of the crazy buffer either side, but that gold in the middle. Do check out Girls Brigade. They are amazing. Have a great week.